You sit there back of your big cigars and think of deliberately killing an idea that's made millions of people a little bit happier. An idea that's brought thousands of them here from all over the country, by bus and by freight and jalopies and on foot, so they could pass on to each other their own simple little experiences. Why, look, I'm just a mug and I know it, but I'm beginning to understand a lot of things. Why, your type's as old as history. If you can't lay your dirty fingers on a decent idea and twist it and squeeze it and stuff it into your own pocket, you slap it down. Like dogs, if you can't eat something, you bury it.
Net neutrality, a hot button issue right now. And I may be making this video far too late. Or maybe just in time, who knows. In the end, it probably doesn't matter, because I'm sure all the votes have been bought and paid for, and when it comes time for those in power to make their choice, it'll go against the whim and the will of the people. And this is nothing new. I was alive before the internet was a big thing for the public. I remember how the internet was with AOL, Netscape, and Prodigy, which coincidentally was owned by CBS and AT&T. I remember the cable companies, the cable industries, which were pretty much monopolies, but they tell you otherwise, and how they ran their business practices. All these packages. You had your base package, you had your intermediate, you had your sports package, you had your Disney included package. The funny thing is, Disney itself was $35 when I was a kid, a month, for the Disney Channel. And I remember not being able to watch it except for when they did those special 2 weeks of Disney or a weekend of Disney for Halloween or Christmas or some BS. And I used to think to myself how unfair it was and how expensive cable television could get. It wasn't until DirecTV came into the mix that some of the cable companies actually had some semblance of competition, and they had to actually compete for consumers' business. You see, what destroyed the cable companies was their overwhelming greed. Their special packages. If you got an add-on channel, it was $20 or $30 extra. HBO was $14 or $15. Cinemax was another $25. It was ridiculous. If net neutrality is rolled back, we could very much end up with that with the internet. And believe me, if you don't think these internet service providers who were once cable providers won't do this again, they will. They will. If the Title II is rolled back, won't come up with a gaming package. Get this much megabytes for gaming and unlimited access to your favorite video game servers. You got another thing coming. If you don't think they won't find a way to charge you to go to Facebook, which they know a lot of motherfuckers cannot live without, they'll do it. Remember, the only thing they care about is money. That's it. And control. They want to control you. They want to limit your freedoms. That's why we got chips in cards. That's why Google is tracking your phone if you have an Android, even if you turn off the tracking feature. They want to know everything about you. They data mine you, and they sell your information to other companies. You are a walking source of income, and still, it's not enough for them. Trust me, I know. I've lived through it. Like an old man who screams about the Holocaust. If you don't watch your ass, it could possibly happen again. You see, what destroyed those cable industries was their own hubris. And when the internet came along, people found that there was freedom to watch whatever the fuck you wanted when you wanted. And when there wasn't that sort of stuff to watch, there were people to watch. Because frankly, normal people are typically more interesting than the shit any one of these cable companies could provide. That's why they tried to get into reality television, but that's a different argument altogether. Ajit Pai would have you believe that everything was perfectly fine before 2015.
I just want to pose a hypothetical to you. Sure. Let's just say Comcast created a new TV series, and it just so happened that that competed with a Netflix series very similarly. If these rules go away, how is there not an incredible incentive for Comcast to slow Netflix down coming into my house and make their video, the Comcast video, very robust?
So under that hypothetical, one of the things that's important to remember is that it is a hypothetical.
Bullshit artist!
We don't see evidence of that happening in the marketplace on a widespread level.
I say again, bullshit artist!
There have been some examples of ISPs blocking certain things. The Google Wallet was blocked, Skype was blocked, one Canadian telecom blocked pro-labor sites. I mean, it's not like this doesn't happen.
Wow, what do you say after that one? Brutal, savage, wrecked, absolutely taken down. You're making some changes, and it's causing a bit of controversy.
So I hear.
Yeah, a little bit of upset. For those who don't know what net neutrality is, if I were to define it based on what your critics say, it would be something like this. Freedom on the internet is now in jeopardy because we're handing over control of the internet to a very few, very large corporations. You know, people can see what the companies want them to see and can't see what the companies don't want them to see. Is that a fair assessment, you think?
It's a media of belief, a media of belief. The whole media is controlled by a few corporations thanks to deregulation by the FCC.
You mean Disney, Fox, Westinghouse, and good old GE?
They own networks from CBS to CNBC.
They can use them to say whatever they please and put down the opinions of anyone who disagrees.
It was recently on the David Letterman show on October 9th that I did the show, taped the show at 5:30 in New York, and then at 7 p.m. was called by the producer and told that I would be excised completely from the show. I, of course, asked why. The material had been approved and reapproved by the producers. And they said that CBS had deemed the material, these are quotation marks, unsuitable for the viewing public and for the Letterman audience. And I made the point that when I'm not on the show, I'm a member of the Letterman audience. So ultimately what you're saying is my material is not suitable for me. What a predicament. So anyway, I was censored from the show, and I kind of think there's not a, you know, there's a little pride in that. I mean, a lot of people have been bleeped and burped, and but actually what happened was I did some material about the pro-life people. And the joke I did was very simple. All I said was, if you're so pro-life, do me a favor, don't lock arms and block medical clinics. Lock arms and block cemeteries. Let's see how committed you are to this premise. It could even be construed as pro-life if you wanted to make that argument. Yeah. Anyway, they counted that as one of the quote-unquote hot points that I touched on. Here's the punchline. Monday night during the Letterman show, a commercial airs for pro-life. So see, we just had a misunderstanding. I thought I lived in the U.S. of A., the United States of America. Right. And actually we live in the U.S. of A., the United States of advertising. Freedom of expression is guaranteed if you've got the money.
Stuff about PCBs.
What are PCBs?
They come from electric power plants built by Westinghouse and GE.
They can give you lots of cancer that can hurt your body.
But on network TV, you rarely hear anything bad about the nuclear industry.
Like when Westinghouse was sued for fraud.
Which time?
GE made defective bolts, it was an unreported crime. Or when it was boycotted for operating nuclear bomb plants just to squeeze a dime.
That's a footnote, by the way.
A footnote protects you from folks who doubt what you say. Now maybe the voices in my head will go away.
But the big shots don't care. They're all sitting pretty thanks to corporate welfare.
What's that now?
They get billions in subsidies from the government. It's supposed to create jobs, but that's not how it's spent. They use tax and soft money to support congressmen who will vote for weapons programs again and again and let them dump toxic waste where the young ones play.
INGE made the bullets that shot JFK.
You contribute to this chain every time you buy a product sponsored on this show.
That's what NBC doesn't want you to know.
I don't think it is for a couple of different reasons. Number one, previous to 2015, we had a free and open internet, and we didn't see that type of conduct happening.
These are all bull-faced lies. Comcast was actually throttling bandwidth to people playing the League of Legends. I have no words. I have no words. They treat the internet as if it's a resource that could run out when it's unlimited, much like our electric power plants and all other bullshit. But they have you believe it's a scarcity. They want to treat it as a scarcity so they can charge you a premium for it, because essentially corporate greed. Greed is good. Capitalism. America. And we all remember the whole Netflix scandal when Comcast and Verizon were throttling Netflix. And it wasn't until Netflix gave in and paid the ransom of a few $1 million that all of a sudden the throttling just stopped completely. Time Warner Cable was even sued by New York on behalf of League of Legends players and Netflix customers. Ajit Pai would sit there and lie to you and say that there's no proof that these sort of things happen, but there seems to be. This man is unscrupulous and a corporate puppet. He's a shill. Wasn't he a lobbyist for Verizon before he got this job? Talk about letting wolves into the henhouse, or the fox into the henhouse. He'd also have you believe that if you roll back net neutrality, that the big companies and corporations won't abuse their power. Because of course, big companies and corporations don't abuse their power now, and they never did it in the past. But if history has taught me anything about America's corporations, is that they're cutthroat, and they don't give a fucking shit about you or what the fuck you want, long as it doesn't affect their bottom line. They will exploit you, they will manipulate you, they will herd you like sheep, they will control you. The internet is the last bastion of freedom, the last place where you could actually learn something, information you're not supposed to know. Believe it or not, most of the news outlets that have led to this polarized America are controlled by a few corporations, a few select men, Rupert Murdoch being one of them. Now, this could go into a billion different ways because my mind is just a clutter with things I'd like to convey to you. And I don't really have a script out because I'm not that type of man. One could say this stems all the way back to Roosevelt and his New Deal and the New Dealers. At that point, he came in and pretty much saved capitalism from the capitalist. He reversed the Great Depression. He put the government in control of many things to keep corporations from going too far out of control. This led to the Communication Acts of 1934, and it was revised again in 1996. It wasn't like it was that great, to be honest, because there were so many companies that were allowed to merge. AT&T once again pops up, and I believe the term that was used for AT&T's mergers were called a natural monopoly. A natural monopoly is when an industry in which a high infrastructural cost and other barriers to entry relative to the size of the market give the largest suppliers in the industry, often the first suppliers in a market, an overwhelming advantage over potential competitors. This still exists to this day. In many parts of America, especially the rural parts of America, they have either complete and utter garbage DSL choices for the internet or nothing. That's it. That's why when you go to Walmart, and this may confuse some of you, because you go to Walmart and if you live in an area of decent internet, you see like that big red box where you put 99 cents or $1 in and you can rent a movie and then bring it back whenever. These things are huge in rural America because the internet is garbage. Netflix is a fucking pipe dream to them. It's sad, really. If you also take into account AT&T, if I recall correctly, had 10 years of no taxes to essentially boost their infrastructure, which they never did. I believe they still use copper. Fios is a thing now. America's internet service is actually quite pathetic. Look it up. We're not doing too well in the world. There are places that would surprise you that have superior internet to us. This also leads me to other thoughts of mine. I'm all over the place with this, I know. Back in June 21st of 1987, Reagan vetoed and killed the Fairness Doctrine bill.
In 1987, the FCC, with Reagan's help, repealed the Fairness Doctrine, which had required broadcasters since the 1940s to give adequate and fair coverage to opposing views on issues of public importance. As a result, Rush Limbaugh and talk radio exploded on the scene, finding a massive audience. This and the gradual loosening of limitations on the number of stations a company could own had, by 1996, enabled the growth of a right-wing media empire. With it came a number of interlocked, well-funded conservative think tanks that helped shape a new Washington groupthink. Playing up fears, resentments, and hatred of government, by the end of the 90s, Clear Channel, Rupert Murdoch's Fox News, Talk Radio Network, Salem Radio, the USA Radio Network, and Radio America, as well as the proliferation of cable television networks, had created a movement that would dramatically lower the standards of American political discourse, and in general doom prospects for progressive change.
I have a question about these guys, because if we know they were speaking unaccented French and they had, ski masks on, do we even know what color they were, what the tone of their skin was? I mean, what if they didn't look like typical bad guys?
Well, it's simple. You just don't open fire till you've identified them as bad guys from your handy pocket-sized skin tone chart of evil. It's also available as an app.
Hello and welcome to Justice. I'm Judge Janine Pirro. Thanks for being with us tonight. We need to kill them.
What?
We need to kill them.
What, you and me? How are we going to do that?
Bomb them, and bomb them again.
Ironically, this is a bit like being radicalized by an ideological hate preacher in a slickly produced video.
This all leads back to corporations wanting these things. That's what led to the veto that killed the Fairness Doctrine, because men who own these news outlets can now spin whatever they want, whatever narrative they wish to push. War is big business. War makes money. And as I said earlier, it's not like companies pay attention to the law anyway. And you can't sit and trust anything that the GOP has to say. Honestly, you can't sit and trust anything any government official has to say, if you ask me. In the end, the status quo stays the same. The rich stay rich, the poor stay oppressed. And it never changes. Put no faith in what Ajit Pai has to say. I've seen people that actually support rolling back net neutrality. I'm not quite sure why, but they have their own beliefs. And some people honestly just want to roll it back because it's been titled the Internet Freedom Act. And frankly, all the average American needs to hear is freedom in the act of something. And they'll blindly support it because they don't know the difference between patriotism and nationalism, nor jingoism. Do not think for a moment that the corporations behind all this are your friend. Do not think for a moment, if they're given any level of freedom, that they will act with your best interest in mind. Believe me, some of the largest corporations in American history even allied with the Nazis while American soldiers died.
Despite subsequent disclaimers, refused to divest themselves of their German holdings and even comply with German government orders to retool for war production, while resisting similar demands from the U.S. government. Ford, GM, Standard Oil, Alcoa, ITT, General Electric, the munitions maker DuPont, Eastman Kodak, Westinghouse, Pratt & Whitney, Douglas Aircraft, United Fruit, Singer, and International Harvester continued to trade with Germany up to 1941. Although the United States declared many of these business activities illegal under the Trading with the Enemy Act, several corporations still received special licenses to continue operations in Germany. Profits piled up in blocked bank accounts as Americans were dying on the battlefield.
You might ask me, why would I bring up this? Westinghouse and GE being involved with the Nazis in World War II. And I put it to you this simply. How many times can a company be on the wrong side of history before it just seems like more than a coincidence or ironic, or whatever the fuck you want to call it? Some of the richest men in the world hold a great stake in the media. Because if you control the media, you control the narrative. If you control the narrative, you control the people. If the people are divided, they won't work together. And the internet represents truly freedom of speech, in all honesty. Only on the internet is it a platform where the average person can build a following that rivals that of musicians, movie stars, and news anchors, if not dwarfs them. And if they do not cohere to a certain narrative, they are a danger. They are an enemy to the establishment, to the system. The system doesn't want you to be awake to anything. They want you to be asleep. They want you to be a mindless consumer. They don't want a moment where you are actually aware of what's really going on. I look at Ajit Pai and I see a man who truly has the Marie Antoinette syndrome. Millions of people have made their voices heard about net neutrality, and he completely ignored them. And he will ignore them to the bitter end. This man has his mission. He has his goal in place. And the best we can do is hope that if we make enough noise, Congress does something right for a change once in a blue fucking moon. But I feel the odds are slim. Oh, also, that trickle-down internet phrase I've been hearing, if you believe that, I don't know what the fuck to tell you. I remember the trickle-down economy when I was a kid. I used to hear it from Ronald Reagan Talk about a fucking joke, but he's like the Republicans' poster boy, the golden child. When he went into office, America was the top creditor nation. When he left office, we were the top debtor nation. Trickle-down economies never work. Never. Basically, the rich get a tax break, companies get nice little subsidiary payments. It's basically company welfare, which is funny because a company can get millions of dollars in tax write-offs and all this other bullshit, and everybody's fine with it. But some broke-ass motherfucker in Jersey gets some food stamps and everybody's got a goddamn problem with it. If the trickle-down internet is anything like the trickle-down economy, get ready to get fucked. Plain and simple. And I'm only doing this video per request, because frankly, I don't want to sit and just fly off the handle with my overwhelming disenfranchised feelings towards the government, towards my country. You know, I don't have a problem with America itself, no. I think America is a very nice place. I guess I'm lucky enough to be around forest and trees and such. Seen a couple bald eagles, been attacked by one. I think it's a very beautiful place. But the people who run it are running it into the ground. We are controlled by men that destroy our natural resources for imaginary wealth, that make sure that there's a lot of subterfuge and misinformation, making sure that people are too busy choosing sides, red team versus blue, too busy screaming about conservatives, and the conservatives are screaming about liberals, and meanwhile the oligarchs run away with the money. And if you don't think that the oligarchy is an issue, I don't know what to tell you. And on that note, I should get the hell out of here. I'm unfortunately incredibly tired. I haven't slept much, and that's why my thoughts and connections seem a bit discombobulated, and I apologize for that. I also found making this video to be incredibly depressing, because the more you look into things, the more it just seems completely evil at the core.